One friend, clearly destined for the NBA, wonders if his buddy is ever going to finish that homework. The other, a future mathlete, insists he's on the verge of a legendary academic breakthrough. Our jock hero is less than impressed by the furious display of algebraic power. He officially calls it, blaming the ridiculously cold weather for their canceled one-on-one. Seriously, it's so cold you could probably freeze-frame the air itself. They both agree this level of chill deserves a more epic, dramatic name. Turns out there's a Korean term for this cold that sounds straight out of a fantasy novel. The story goes that the sky itself gets jealous of the beautiful spring flowers. So it sends one last brutal frost to wipe them all out for being too pretty. And how does he know this totally not made-up fact? He read it in a book, obviously. His buddy just smirks, wondering if some cosmic entity thinks they're too pretty to live. With his homework finally conquered, our scholar is officially ready to bawl. Too bad a quick look outside reveals the bell has already betrayed them. Then, a chilling question flashes across the screen, completely shattering the mood. Afternoon class kicks off with the soul-crushing silence of a self-study period. Our protagonist mourns his lost lunchtime, a tragedy of epic proportions. Meanwhile, his desk mate is having a full-blown panic attack over something missing from her bag. The missing item is a precious photo, and she's convinced it's been swiped. He racks his brain for a moment before a prime suspect comes to mind. He casually asks if a certain basketball-loving friend of theirs happened to stop by. The camera pans to the accused, who's totally busy committing the high crime of texting in class. She's ready to call him guilty, but our guy isn't quite convinced. Their top-tier detective work is rudely interrupted by the teacher's death glare. Busted, he tries to become one with his desk to escape the shame. A narrator reminds us that this was, for all intents and purposes, a perfectly normal day. But then our protagonist looks up, a sudden weird feeling washing over him. The thought echoes in his mind. This was supposed to be a normal day. He glances out the window to see giant dark pillars casually erupting into the sky. He tries to get his friend's attention, but she's still deep in her stolen photo drama. With a look of pure disbelief, he can only point at the end of their world starting outside. His frantic warning is completely drowned out by a flashbang of divine proportions. When the light fades, the only thing left is a collective classroom-wide, "Huh?" A wave of panicked questions ripples through the room as everyone reboots their senses. The teacher, clearly not trained for this, attempts to calm the chaos with maximum ineffectiveness. One brave soul sprints to the window, ready to confirm everyone's worst-case scenario. And there it is, a giant, pulsating space egg thing sitting right on the 50-yard line. The cosmic egg hatches, revealing a smile only a xenomorph's mother could love. The entire class crowds the window for a front-row seat to the grossest show on Earth. The teacher's attempt to restore order is cut short by a horrifying discovery on his phone. A single bead of sweat confirms what the screen is telling him. They are completely on their own. He's got 0 bars, because apparently the apocalypse comes with its own signal jammer. With no adult supervision, the room instantly devolves into a screaming mess of alien invasion theories. Our mathlete hero just watches the chaos, his face set with the grim logic of a final boss encounter. Then, a sudden silence falls as someone points to a new party crasher floating in the room. A small, perfectly black sphere just hangs there, radiating a very clear do not touch vibe. He and his friend lock eyes with the orb, a universal feeling of, "Oh, this is bad," sinking in. The teacher bravely announces he's going for help, a classic move that never, ever works out. Nearby, a girl's hand starts shaking so hard her pencil looks like it's trying to escape. A friend asks what's wrong, but all she can manage is a chattering whisper about being cold. The friend recoils as he sees her breath crystallize, the classroom's temperature suddenly dropping to 0. She starts crying out for her mom, overwhelmed by a supernatural chill that's freezing her from the inside. Our protagonist screams at his friend, his gamer instincts blaring that a debuff is being applied. Her buddy tries to help, but she collapses, her body going rigid from the impossible cold. He looks up just in time to see the black sphere crackling with a sinister energy right above her. Her features begin to glitch and distort, her eyes dimming like a TV shutting off for the last time. Her friend can only scream and scramble away from the horrifying thing his classmate just became. The rest of the class can only stare in frozen terror, their brains refusing to process the transformation. A horrible sound, like reality itself tearing, echoes as her form continues to warp impossibly. Her human shape finally gives way, shattering to reveal the nightmarish creature that was hiding inside. And our hero can only watch, completely frozen, as his world's final update finishes loading. Her would-be hero can only scramble backwards, his brain completely short-circuiting. The entire class enters a state of collective, blue screen of death paralysis. A clawed, distinctly non-human hand smashes a desk, splintering any remaining sense of normalcy. The newly spawned nightmare fuel stands up, looking like a glitched character model from a horror game. It lets out a shriek that sounds like dial-up internet arguing with a garbage disposal, its personal death orb floating menacingly overhead. Our hero and the rest of the student body are now effectively human wallpaper, pinned by pure, unadulterated terror. A single textbook hits the floor with a thud that sounds like a starter pistol for the apocalypse. That one sound is all it takes for the dam of denial to break, unleashing a tidal wave of screaming. Suddenly, it's every student for themselves as the classroom becomes a mosh pit of pure panic. The graceful exit strategy immediately devolves into a pileup of flailing limbs and forgotten backpacks. Our hero's glasses are knocked askew, giving him a slightly lopsided view of the end of the world. Through the chaos, he spots his friend on the ground, her face a mask of pure desperation. She manages to choke out that her legs have officially opted out of this whole running for your life situation. He grits his teeth, a cold sweat breaking out as the tactical map in his head shows 0 escape routes. The creature watches the stampede with the cold, calculating patience of a final boss. Its head swivels with an unnatural crack, its gaze sweeping over the buffet of screaming teenagers. One brave, or perhaps foolish student makes a break for it, yelling for everyone to follow his lead. His heroic dash is cut short as a shadowy tendril whips out and snags him like a fly in a web. The look on his face is a perfect portrait of someone who just realized they've aggroed the raid boss alone. The monster lets out a triumphant roar as more dark appendages unfurl, ready for business. A shadowy tendril connects with the student, dealing a massive, unblockable stun lock. The rest of the class can only add their own screams to the chorus, a soundtrack for the unfolding nightmare. Meanwhile, the hallway has become a high-stakes and very one-sided game of human pinball. He's hoisted into the air, his pleas for a rescue team falling on deaf, terrified ears. The poor guy is reeled in like a prize fish and presented to the monster for final inspection. The creature's face splits open into a cavernous maw, clearly getting ready for a very unhappy meal. Our hero can only shield his friend, both of them locked into a mandatory, horrific cutscene. His eyes are wide, processing a level of fear not found in any horror game he's ever platinumed. The darkness from its maw envelops the boy, and he drops to the floor like a puppet with its strings cut. The black sphere then detaches, floating down to hover ominously over the student's unmoving form. The sphere activates, unleashing dark tendrils that begin to process the downed player. It then recalls the orb, absorbing the entire data package with a sickening gulp. The creature crouches amidst the wreckage, its victory screen a silent, trashed classroom. Under a desk, our hero and his friend have entered extreme stealth mode, trying not to breathe too loudly. The monster tilts its head, seemingly puzzled by the distant sound of other players on the map. He holds her close, both of them frozen in a real-life QuickTime event where the only button is "Don't move." It lets out a low, guttural noise like it's trying to remember its next line of dialogue. The creature repeats the sound, pinging the room for any remaining life signs. Elsewhere, some guy in the bathroom is completely oblivious, complaining about the racket from the floor above. His friend just waves it off, assuming it's just the drama club getting way too into their rehearsals. Still, they both have to admit things have been a little weirder than usual around campus lately. The gray-haired one then dares his buddy to go poke the weird fleshy thing on the soccer field for a bit of cash. His friend immediately declines the side quest, stating his self-preservation instinct is worth more than pocket change. The bully just laughs it off with a totally convincing, "Just kidding, unless" kind of vibe. They both stare out at the object in question, a giant, pulsating mound of what looks like rejected jello. But then, the gray-haired student gets a look on his face that says a terrible, horrible, no-good, very bad idea is loading. A wicked grin confirms that the download is complete, and it's running on pure chaotic evil energy. On the floor is another student who's clearly had a bad day, and the bully tells his friend to get him on his feet. The friend nervously asks if they're planning a sequel to whatever just happened, but the bully promises they're done. He explains that they're simply going to use their new volunteer to satisfy a little scientific curiosity. A moment later, we see the poor guy's unsteady feet trudging across the lawn toward the mystery object. Blindfolded and worse for wear, he stumbles along, asking if this little field trip is almost over. From the window above, the bullies offer some less than helpful encouragement for him to keep walking. They even have the nerve to mock his navigation skills, despite him walking in a perfectly straight line. The accomplice is starting to sweat, realizing their little prank might have some serious real-world consequences. Their test subject finally comes to a stop, standing directly in the shadow of the giant, fleshy landmark. The lead bully just scoffs, pointing out with world-famous last words that the thing isn't even moving. With a manic gleam in his eye, he tells his friend to get the camera ready for the grand finale. Down on the field, the victim's feet take one last hesitant step toward the unknown. He clutches his side, crying out that his stamina bar has officially hit 0 and he can't go on. He takes a deep breath, deciding that facing the unknown is far better than facing those jerks again. His trembling hand makes contact, officially poking the eldritch horror for a bit of lunch money. Meanwhile, back in the classroom, our heroes are still playing the world's most stressful game of hide-and-seek. The monster lets out another one of those dial-up modem screeches, its core beginning to glow ominously. It pings the room again, its head sweeping across the wreckage like a biological radar system. Our hero's face is a waterfall of panic sweat as the "you are dead" screen flashes in his mind. The creature begins to move, gliding over the desks with a creepy, unnatural smoothness. He tries to signal a tactical retreat, but his friend's controls have been disconnected by pure terror. A shadowy tendril suddenly lashes out, moving faster than the game's framerate can handle. Its spindly claws dig into a nearby desk, splintering the wood with casual, terrifying force. The monster lands with a ground-shaking thud, turning the remaining furniture into a cloud of shrapnel. A razor-sharp appendage impales the wall, missing his head by millimeters in a classic jump scare. His eyes go wide as he gets a face full of concrete dust and the sudden fear of a respawn. He can only stare at the newly installed skylight in the wall, his brain struggling to process the near miss. He whips back to his friend, his expression screaming that the time for stealth is officially over. Unfortunately, she's experiencing a total system crash, complete with panicked sobs and calls for her mom. He sees it in her eyes. The fear has completely bricked her system, leaving her unable to move. His face hardens as he quickly calculates their abysmal survival odds and the cost of party wiping. All the while, the creature continues its slow, menacing advance, like a boss in its final phase. A terrible, pragmatic, and decidedly unheroic idea begins to form in his mind. She just keeps whispering how scared she is, completely unaware of the tactical sacrifice he's considering. And then he does it, bolting from their cover and making a beeline for the exit. She looks up, her tear-filled eyes widening in disbelief as she realizes he just used her as aggro bait. The monster immediately pivots, its massive shadow falling over her frozen form. Her terror peaks in a scream that could shatter glass and any hope of a happy ending. And that's the exact moment the teacher decides to storm in, complaining about the noise like a disgruntled landlord. He marches in, baseball bat in hand, ready to lay down the law on what he assumes are some rowdy kids. His righteous lecture comes to a screeching halt as his brain finally registers the 10-foot-tall detention slip. Before his fight-or-flight response can even boot up, a dark tendril whips out to greet him. The teacher gets tagged, his face locking into an expression of pure, unadulterated regret. A pained cry echoes through the classroom as the teacher is instantly deleted from the fight. The girl's entire system blue screens as she slides down the wall, her only output a faint call for her mother. Her entire world dissolves into a red-tinted filter of pure, unadulterated terror. He wipes away a single tactical tear, realizing that a game over this early would be just plain embarrassing. He lunges forward, yanking his friend's wrist like he's trying to pull-start a lawnmower of courage. He grunts about her being surprisingly heavy for a support character, pulling her to her feet as she sobs his name in relief. Through her tears, she asks where he went, to which he delivers the most classic, unbelievable excuse in history: the bathroom. Meanwhile, the teacher is taking an unscheduled nap on the floor, his trusty bat having logged off beside him. The creature looms over its new friend, seemingly ready to collect some bonus XP. The monster finishes its side quest with the teacher before turning its full attention back to the main mission. A dark sphere of energy is absorbed back into the creature, taking the teacher's character model with it. With its business concluded, the monster casually strolls out, leaving behind a mess and a very awkward silence. The camera pans over to a seemingly innocent storage cabinet, the last bastion of hope in the trashed room. Inside, our heroes are crammed together, trying to muffle their panicked breathing as heavy footsteps patrol the hallway. The whisper argument begins, with accusations of cowardice met by the classic "it was a tactical retreat" defense. Their argument is cut short by the more pressing question of whether the monster is just camping the exit. A moment of quiet relief washes over her as she thanks him, admitting she was already seeing the "continue" screen. He immediately starts sweating like he's trying to defuse a bomb, completely unable to look her in the eye. Her relief quickly evaporates as she connects the dots, asking the one question he really didn't want to answer. The hushed argument reignites, his flimsy excuses doing little to put out the fire of her righteous indignation. He tries to smooth things over with the offer of a snack, but she immediately counters with a demand for a lifetime subscription. He scoffs, insisting that his heroic, definitely not cowardly return deserves a reward, not a punishment. Their bickering is interrupted by a massive, shadowy hand sliding past the crack in the door. Frozen mid-argument, she whispers if it's gone, and he makes the classic horror movie suggestion to just take a little peek. Of course, they're completely unaware that the monster is crouched right outside, patiently waiting for them to check. His hand, slick with the sweat of poor life choices, trembles as it reaches for the door handle. He cracks the door just enough for a sliver of light to reveal their wide, terrified eyes. The camera pulls back to an overhead shot, showing just how small and trapped they are in their little metal box. Their entire field of view is immediately filled with the monster's face, its expression saying, "Peekaboo, I see you." A single pale hand casually grips the door, and our hero's face says it all. This is a total party kill. He instantly regrets not picking the solo run dialogue option, but the expected game over screen is replaced by a confusing anticlimactic silence. He risks a peek through the crack, only to find the hallway suspiciously empty. His brain toggles between relief and the terrifying possibility that the monster just learned how to use stealth mode. A tiny, fragile sliver of hope suggests it might have just rage quit. He strains his ears, and for one beautiful, blissful moment, there's nothing but the sound of his own thumping heart. And then a low, gurgling rumble echoes not from the hallway, but from right beside him. Her face drains of all color as her stomach betrays their hiding spot with the roar of 1,000 hungry lions. He can only stare in horror as his own stomach joins in, creating a symphony of ill-timed hunger. The scene cuts to a peaceful, sunny day outside, completely oblivious to the drama unfolding within. That peace is abruptly shattered, as an entire section of the school wall just decides to uninstall itself. Meanwhile, on the field below, a blindfolded student is about to learn a very harsh lesson about trusting his friends. He gingerly reaches out, standing before a large, lumpy object that definitely wasn't on the school's equipment list. His hand makes contact with a bizarre, leathery texture that feels deeply, fundamentally wrong. He yanks his hand back as his brain finally flags the encounter with a giant red danger notification. Up on a balcony, the school's resident goon squad films the whole thing, barely able to contain their laughter. Their victim remains completely oblivious, a lone player in a game he doesn't know he's playing. The lead bully gestures to his cameraman, signaling him to get ready for the big, hilarious reveal. He shouts for the kid to take off the blindfold, but the boy is completely frozen, sensing a different kind of threat. The bully just scoffs, assuming his victim is trying to ruin the punchline by ignoring him. But his annoyance is cut short by a sudden, impossible movement from the school building itself. His jaw drops as he stares at the giant, smoking hole that has just appeared in what used to be a classroom. The kid on the field flinches from the explosive sound, just as the prank object behind him begins to yawn. He rips off his blindfold, his first sight being not the bullies, but the catastrophic damage to the school. The monster from the classroom makes a grand, unannounced exit, landing on the field with an earth-shaking thud. The now useless blindfold flutters away on the shockwave of its landing. The bully's smug grin completely evaporates, replaced by the wide-eyed stare of someone who just realized his prank has been hijacked. Across the field, other students point and grimace at the weird, fleshy mound that's been sitting there all day. One student cracks a joke, comparing it to the cafeteria's mystery meat special. But his friend isn't laughing, pointing out the much more disturbing fact that some poor kid is standing right next to it. From a safe distance, other students judge the kid on the field for having zero survival instinct. They press against the glass for a better view, collectively wondering if this is a new kind of extreme sport. A collective gasp ripples through the crowd as the kid actually pokes the mystery blob. And just like that, morbid curiosity faceplants directly into pure, unadulterated terror. A single cinematic bead of sweat traces a path of instant regret down one student's face. Their front row seat to the drama is suddenly upgraded to the splash zone as a new monster fills their window frame. The monster decides it doesn't like the view and performs some impromptu, high-impact remodeling. Meanwhile, the prank victim's lumpy object suddenly develops a very large, very toothy mouth. He finally removes the blindfold, his expression instantly rebooting into the blue screen of death. The classroom monster makes a superhero landing, delivering a smackdown that interrupts the field monster's snack time. The entire student body can only buffer in stunned silence as a wild boss battle erupts on the lawn. One girl covers her mouth, her brain refusing to render the absolute chaos unfolding below. The winner lets out a victory screech, clearly having farmed some serious XP from the encounter. The silence is shattered as the audience remembers this isn't a cutscene and begins to panic accordingly. Its roar echoes across campus, a clear server-wide announcement that it now owns this zone. The lead bully's smug facade cracks, immediately switching from prankster to person who is about to get eaten. Their VIP viewing box is promptly deleted from existence, leaving only a cloud of dust and regret. Back in the storage closet, our heroes take a moment to appreciate not being turned into a fine red mist. His companion is already on the verge of tears, admitting she was pretty sure that was the final boss. He just stares at the new monster-sized window, silently calculating the repair costs. A quick peek confirms the monster has successfully relocated to the schoolyard, aggroing the entire student body. He scans the battlefield below, trying to process the absolute mess of a PvP zone his school has become. The victorious monster is now crouched over its prize, disturbingly still as if it's sorting through its loot. Any hope for a quiet escape is instantly vaporized by a tidal wave of screaming students flooding the hallway. His companion looks at the stampede, then back at him, asking for the next step in this disastrous walkthrough. She frantically insists they need to run before the monster remembers there are still respawning targets indoors. He grits his teeth, realizing every single exit is currently camped by either a monster or a mob of panicked NPCs. She suggests an outdoor escape route before her brain catches up and flags that as a monumentally bad idea. Down on the field, the monster lifts a bizarre skeletal trophy from its fallen foe, and they both simultaneously realize that outside has been upgraded from escape route to express delivery to the afterlife. He observes the panicked mob, noting their pathing AI seems to be set to headless chicken. She correctly diagnoses the crowd with a terminal case of scream and run into things. Our heroine finally chimes in with a classic gamer strat: loot the admin office for communication devices. The school's resident jock, Eason, materializes with a cool smirk, immediately shutting down their only plan. Her companion squares up, questioning why the star athlete isn't currently part of the monster's digestive tract. He quips that he was just worried, a line that lands with a thud when she reveals the monster used to be their classmate. Her friend completely ignores the classmate is a kaiju plot twist, still laser-focused on Eason's suspicious timing. She brings the conversation back on track, asking Eason for the patch notes on why the teacher's office is a no-go zone. He just holds up his phone, revealing a no-service screen that's more terrifying than any monster. The friend's brain begins to buffer, demanding an explanation that Eason delivers with a cool, unhelpful shrug. All eyes turn to the monster on the field, wondering if AoE Signal Jam is one of its passive abilities. Eason takes the lead, suggesting they find a safe zone and wait for the high-level cavalry to arrive. Her companion raises an eyebrow, asking if this brilliant plan includes an actual destination. The party immediately dissolves into chaos, shouting out conflicting safe zones like the cafeteria, auditorium, and rooftop. Surrounded by the ruins of their school, the three heroes are stuck in a dialogue tree with no right answers. Eason scoffs, dismissing their survival strategies as having been written by someone who's never played a video game. He argues for the auditorium's thick walls, while Eason argues that it's a giant, inescapable death trap. Eason cuts through the bickering with a grim new parameter: plan for being trapped here for a full month. They protest the absurd timeline, but Eason counters with the simple, undeniable logic of needing to manage their hunger bars. He points at the structural damage, making a solid case for prioritizing a high-defense shelter over a snack run. She counters their long-term planning by pointing out the main quest is get rescued, not become post-apocalyptic warlords. Her companion just stares at her, the concept of rescue no longer computing in his panic-addled brain. She lays out her flawless logic: a disaster of this scale guarantees a server-wide rescue event is imminent. To everyone's surprise, Eason supports her theory, predicting a rescue helicopter will spawn within the hour. Mounting a nearby cabinet for dramatic effect, she confidently proclaims that rescue is the only logical endgame. A light bulb finally goes off over his head, as he realizes her optimistic plan might actually be the correct walkthrough. With 2 votes in favor, the friend is outvoted and begrudgingly agrees to the get rescued strategy. The moment a plan is formed, our hero's legs decide to spontaneously uninstall, sending her tumbling. He makes a diving catch, frantically asking if she's been hit with a sudden debuff. She admits her bravery was a buff that just wore off, as her legs are once again disabled by the terror status effect. Her face glitches with the paralyzing fear debuff as she struggles to reboot her lungs. He checks her status, asking if the walk command is still grayed out on her action bar. She latches onto his sleeve, her hand vibrating like a controller on low battery. A quick scan reveals everyone else is just running a better brave face cosmetic overlay. Forcing a manual override on her motor functions, she confirms she's ready to move out. The party exits the tutorial zone through the new monster-installed panoramic window. Their desperate stair climb montage begins, taking them to the next level of the map. She suddenly remembers the final boss of this area, a notoriously locked rooftop door. She calls out Eason for leading them on a quest without checking the wiki for key requirements. Eason smirks, claiming his lock-picking skill is more than high enough for this. He's about to defend his good boy reputation when a new piece of data clicks into place. He grins, realizing the lock has already been picked, meaning another party cleared this objective first. His hand closes around the doorknob, ready to enter the next instance. With a dramatic flourish, Eason throws the door open, revealing the rooftop safe zone. Except the server is already packed, with dozens of other players who had the exact same idea. A few NPCs by the fence turn to acknowledge the arrival of the main quest characters. Nearby, one student tells his panicking duo partner to just mute his mic for a second. He realizes their galaxy brain strategy was just the default spawn point for everyone. Her companion notes that the pale and terrified character shader seems to be universally applied. Eason suddenly freezes mid-stride, his expression dropping like a server connection. He stares at nothing, muttering that their current situation has just been downgraded to hopeless. She immediately demands a debrief, asking what new horror he's just processed. Eason looks to the horizon, grimly announcing that the rescue event may have been cancelled. He raises a shaky hand, pointing to a new objective marker on the city's skyline. He asks if their render distance is high enough to see what he's seeing. In the distance, a second world boss is just casually chilling on top of a skyscraper. Her brain short-circuits, trying to calculate how the monster on the field clipped through the map to get there. Eason just collapses, finally understanding this isn't a school-based instance but a server-wide invasion. Elsewhere on the roof, a lone NPC wonders why his party ditched him without so much as a "gee." He then spots another player on the ground, afflicted with a new sudden-onset hypothermia debuff. A background NPC suddenly blue screens, demanding to know what server he's on. The new objective marker reveals a second raid boss playing peekaboo over the city's draw distance. Another player's jaw unhinges, his brain failing to render the impossible asset. He finally downloads the patch notes for this Apocalypse expansion, and his system stability plummets. Someone mentions the building opposite was a high-level farming zone just a few minutes ago. The word chaos triggers a flashback, or possibly just a really bad ping spike. A nearby building's wall has been replaced with a user-unfriendly panoramic view of a recently redecorated office. Inside, an NPC seems to have logged out permanently amidst the server-wide physics glitch. A monster's hand clips through the wall, reaching to interact with the downed player model. The creature initiates a grapple move on the NPC's head hitbox. It then begins to uninstall the NPC from the premises through the new custom exit. The player is dragged off-screen, leaving behind only some corrupted pixels and a loot drop. Another player clutches the safety railing, his UI completely frozen by the unskippable cutscene. He realizes if the main city hub is this bugged, his personal player housing has probably been wiped. A different party member runs a status check, asking her tank if they're spec'd for this. He questions the RNG, wondering why the devs chose their quiet starting zone for the world event. The awful realization hits that this isn't a localized server issue, but a full-blown global rollback. The recently rebooted bully stomps over, telling them to stop spamming the chat with doom and gloom macros. He and his lackey attempt to enforce a voice chat ban on the entire rooftop party. Everyone is stunned by the sudden aggro from what they assumed was a non-hostile NPC. The bully initiates a PvP grapple, threatening to kite her into the nearest monster spawn. She fails the QuickTime event to break free while her friend spams the report player button. With a grin that screams griefer, the bully cancels the grapple animation. He then lands a critical hit with a powerful knockback effect, sending her flying. Her friend's face glitches, stuck on the surprised Pikachu emote as he watches her HP bar drop. She hits the ground, suffering from a stun debuff from the unexpected player kill attempt. She checks her own character model, unable to believe friendly fire was enabled on this server. The bully just shrugs it off, blaming his actions on the insanity debuff from the world event. Her friend switches to a defensive stance, using the bodyguard skill and begging the griefer to log off. The bully just smirks, mocking his low defense stat before queuing up his next attack. Her bodyguard tries to initiate a parley, but the bully's dialogue options are all set to hostile. Our pint-sized protagonist requests a timeout, pointing out the world-ending event currently in progress. A new player with a hoodie and zero patience for this nonsense logs into the conversation. He immediately shifts aggro, mocking their party for being a bunch of level 1 freshmen. The hoodie girl reminds him that a player was just rage quit from existence, questioning his sense of timing. This feedback only enrages him further, and he threatens to send her to the great server in the sky. He then turns to flame his own teammate, Cheolman, for spectating instead of participating. With a grin that could curdle a health potion, he asks Cheolman if he'd like to get debuffed too. Our original duo can only watch as the enemy team begins to self-destruct mid-encounter. The bodyguard's processor overheats, struggling to render the escalating levels of sheer idiocy. Other players on the roof exchange confused emotes, wondering why anyone would start a guild war now. Meanwhile, a mysterious black sphere renders in the skybox, completely ignored by the drama below. The bodyguard is the first to look up, and his face immediately registers a critical error. He's hit with a flashback to the tutorial mission, remembering an identical sphere right before the server crashed. The horrifying implication downloads directly into his brain, and his expression becomes a living 404 error. The ominous black sphere continues its ominous hovering, radiating pure bad update energy. He screams at his party to abort the mission and find the nearest logout point immediately. The bully just scoffs, apparently thinking he's the zone moderator for this rooftop. He frantically explains that the floating sphere is about to force a class change on someone into a raid boss. The entire rooftop server lags for a moment as every player freezes in a standoff. The hoodie girl and her friend are stunned silent, trying to process the insane patch notes. The bully and his remaining lackey just spam the laugh emote, dismissing it as a troll post. Chelman, however, seems to be downloading the warning, his face suddenly pale and sweaty. He then drops the lore bomb that the first monster wasn't a random mob, but their classmate, Kim Sujin. This particular name hits Chelman like a critical hit to the psyche, and he immediately bolts. Taking that as the cue, he grabs our protagonist and yells that it's time to abandon the quest. The hoodie girl wisely follows suit, dragging her own stunned friend along for the great escape. But the bully decides to play as an unmovable environmental object, blocking their only exit. He smirks down at our hero, informing her that this encounter isn't over yet. She just stares back, her expression clearly communicating she's about to spec into violence. The bully cranks up his grip strength, clearly having missed the memo about the impending apocalypse. A blood-curdling scream from the world's worst pop-up ad interrupts their regularly scheduled bullying. Down below, the prophecy comes true, as a student begins an unscheduled character evolution under an identical black sphere. His character model glitches out spectacularly, with texture stretching and his eyes becoming empty voids of pure lag. The bodyguard's warning upgrades from a panicked yell to a full-blown everyone log off now system alert. The bully, whose name is apparently Eason, immediately abandons his tough guy act and makes a mad dash for the exit. He almost reaches the logout point when a monstrous hand slams down, setting the door's status to permanently busy. Eason freezes mid-sprint, his bravado instantly evaporating into a single terrified bead of sweat. The entire bully squad pivots, their aggro expressions replaced with the wide-eyed look of players who just stumbled into a raid zone. A grotesque vine-like creature wraps around the doorway, officially sealing their beta test group inside the server. On the field below, the newly spawned raid boss finishes its summoning animation with a ground-shattering slam. The student's transformation completes, and he now towers over the courtyard as a full-fledged, horrifying world boss. A random player's face fills with despair as he finally understands the phrase, "no exit instance." Eason's grim expression deepens as his name is called from the chaos, and for once it's not because he's in trouble with a teacher. His friend screams his name, face a perfect mask of, "We are so getting permabanned for this." The friend makes a desperate sprint for the door, apparently not having noticed the giant "Do Not Enter" sign made of monster parts. The rooftop server officially crashes into chaos as every player scatters, spamming the help command to no avail. Eason stumbles back from the barricaded exit, his face a portrait of a man who just learned his save file is corrupted. He whips around with a panicked expression, desperately trying to locate his party member in the sea of screaming avatars. A different student holds open the door to a small rooftop shed, yelling for his friend to get to the new, much smaller safe zone. From the relative safety of the doorway, Eason watches a massive monster arm execute a sweeping attack that misses him by mere pixels. His face twists in horror as he realizes his friend didn't make it through the door before the attack landed. The friend gets absolutely launched by the blow, taking massive knockback damage and ragdolling into the safety fence. A dark, shadowy tendril immediately applies a grapple status effect, ensnaring the fallen student. He collapses, health bar flashing critical, as his friend can only stare, stunned into inaction. Gritting his teeth through the pain debuff, he struggles to lift his head for one last look at the boss. The remaining players are frozen solid, their brains buffering as they stare up at the terrifying creature that just one-shotted their friend. The monster unleashes another AoE attack, sending players scattering and one girl screaming for a game master. A terrified girl asks her friend for a strategy, and he responds by shoving her towards the only potential respawn point. He then turns to face the monster, pushing through the panicked crowd, ready to tank the boss all by himself. He grits his teeth, declaring his brilliant strategy is to make it up as he goes. He suddenly whips out a knife, prompting our protagonist to do a spit take she hadn't even prepared for. She pivots on her heel, demanding he return her limited edition, high DPS collectible immediately. Meanwhile, one of Eason's crew stares dumbfounded at the taser he apparently panic-looted from someone's backpack. The monster decides to change targets, cornering a random girl who is currently experiencing a critical existence failure. The previously ragdolled friend uses his last ounce of stamina to yell a, "You need to kite the boss" warning. She remains frozen, trying to convince herself this is just a very immersive, very terrible dream sequence. A sneaker suddenly digs into the pavement, launching a new challenger into the fray. Taser Boy goes full Leroy Jenkins, charging in with his newly acquired stun gun and a battle cry of pure panic. His heroic charge expression immediately morphs into one of, "Wait, that wasn't in the patch notes." A shadowy tendril ignores him completely, yeeting the very girl he was trying to save across the rooftop. The attack lands, and her character model is immediately deleted from the instance. Taser Boy can only stare, his brain blue-screening at the horrifyingly effective permaban. The rest of the student body stands frozen, their collective jaws hitting the floor with a synchronized thud. The monster holds the now unresponsive player model, preparing to initiate its consume animation. Its jaw unhinges to an impossible angle, getting ready to absorb the player's data packet. A nearby student's face is a waterfall of terrified sweat as he watches the live-action horror movie unfold. In a flash of corrupted data, the monster finishes its delete character sequence. Taser Boy's hand begins to vibrate uncontrollably, the low-tier weapon feeling utterly useless. The world boss strikes a victory pose, having successfully asserted its dominance over the N0B-filled starting zone. His resolve finally shatters, and the taser slips from his grip in a moment of pure, unadulterated nope. But before it can hit the ground, our protagonist zips in and snatches it midair with pro-gamer reflexes. He just stares, completely baffled by her insane ping and lightning-fast reaction time. The monster, meanwhile, absorbs the mysterious black sphere, completing its power-up sequence. With a look of pure, unadulterated "it's go time," our tiny protagonist charges the final boss. She winds up the taser, screaming a challenge that basically translates to "eat static, you overgrown glitch." She jams the device right into its ankle hitbox, unleashing a full battery's worth of spicy justice. The monster lets out a digitized roar as blue electric energy crackles over its entire character model. But instead of a stun effect, the taser seems to trigger a new attack pattern as shadowy tendrils erupt from its head. She stares up in horror, realizing she didn't just fail the DPS check. She accidentally activated its hard mode. The monster's new attack phase begins with a flurry of shadow whips, instantly logging out several fleeing students. Taser Boy, apparently not learning his lesson, makes a desperate lunge for the still sparking device lodged in the boss's ankle. Our protagonist is pinned down by the sheer aggro she's drawn, staring up at the raid boss she just accidentally buffed. From the relative safety of the exit, her party members can only scream her character name, their voices cracking with panic. She stares into the glitchy sky, contemplating the very real possibility of a game over screen. Suddenly, a fellow player dives in, using his own hitbox to tank the incoming damage for her. The impromptu tank pants heavily, his health bar blinking red after that near-fatal party wipe. The few remaining players take a quick breather, doing a frantic head count amidst the rooftop wreckage. Something small and dense detaches from the monster, dropping a mysterious piece of loot that craters the concrete. Just as they relax, her new companion shouts a warning as the boss's idle animation suddenly ends. Another party member shrieks for a tactical retreat as the monster's shadow falls over their escape route. The creature's face splits open, revealing that ominous black sphere now charging up a one-shot kill ability. Having made some distance, the boy and our hero glance back, hoping the boss has finally reset. He pulls her to her feet, breathlessly explaining that one good tank deserves another. The monster pauses its attack pattern, silently tracking the survivors as they scramble for the exit door. The first student to reach the door shouts a new warning, his face pale with a fresh kind of terror. The monster emits a horrifying dial-up tone as a long, whip-like tail sprouts from its back, clearly signaling Phase 3. The fleeing students realize with dawning horror that the boss is about to cut off their only exit. The ones already inside scream encouragement, desperately trying to lower the raid's abysmal clear time. The guy holding the door grits his teeth, clearly annoyed by the party's collective movement speed debuff. With a sound like a corrupted audio file, the monster's new tail appendage whips through the air with lethal speed. In a shocking display of poor sportsmanship, the student at the door suddenly grabs the jacket of the guy helping our hero. He gives a look of pure, selfish PvP intent, ordering him to break formation immediately. He then shoves them both aside, deciding to save his own KD ratio and make a run for it. Our protagonist and her temporary tank hit the deck as the traitor makes a mad dash for the instant's exit. His fingers wrap around the doorknob, just a single frame away from escaping the boss room. He yanks the door shut, leaving the rest of the party locked on the wrong side with a very angry raid boss. Leaning against the sealed door, he breathes a sigh of relief, muttering about how he barely survived that team-killing lag. The other students who made it through can only stare, absolutely stunned by the blatant ninja looting of an escape route. Back on the rooftop, her companion just sighs, lamenting that they really should have picked the other quest line. Her companion just sighs, explaining that the first wave of students simply scattered without a plan. The door-slamming traitor immediately tries to score some cheap chivalry points with a nearby girl. His face suddenly drains of color as a single horrifying thought hits him like a truck. A sudden, violent thump against the door sends the entire group stumbling back in a fresh wave of panic. His friend starts to panic, desperately asking if he's absolutely sure that flimsy lock will hold. A younger student, clearly the only one with a functioning brain cell, screams at them for just standing there. The door slammer desperately tries to reassure himself, insisting that the lock is solid and nothing can possibly get through. The dawning horror on his face confirms he's just realized the fatal flaw in his every man for himself strategy. He resorts to screaming that the rooftop was a total loss anyway, desperately trying to justify his actions. As if summoned by his cowardice, an immense force slams into the door, silencing him instantly. The girl in the hoodie can only stare in wide-eyed shock, managing a single horrified whisper to run. That's all the motivation they need, triggering a full-blown stampede down the concrete stairs. The door visibly buckles under another thunderous impact, its lock and hinges groaning in protest. Panicked shouts for a new rally point echo through the stairwell, with someone suggesting the auditorium. With a final, deafening screech, the entire door is ripped from its hinges and sent flying after them. The steel projectile smashes into the landing below, barely missing the tail end of the fleeing group. The survivors can only look back, absolutely stunned by the sheer, unadulterated boss-level strength. All eyes drift upward to the now empty doorway, a dark, gaping hole leading back to the rooftop. Framed within the doorway is a chilling silhouette of the battle's grim aftermath. A lone player slumps against the wall, clearly having suffered a critical existence failure. Elsewhere, our favorite gray-haired bully cautiously peeks through a chain-link fence, scouting the area. He and his crony exchange nervous whispers, desperately hoping the raid boss has finally despawned. His eyes are glued to the rooftop, silently pleading with the universe for the monster to just despawn already. His eyes widen in confusion as the creature does something completely outside its normal attack pattern. The creature calmly raises one hand and, with a chilling sense of purpose, snaps its fingers. A split second later, a massive concussive force blows another door completely off its hinges. The bully flinches violently, the deafening blast having originated alarmingly close to his hiding spot. He completely loses his balance, dropping the pathetic sheet of metal he was using for cover. The monster crouches by the fresh exit, its head cocked at the sound of something clattering nearby. He collapses in a heap of pure relief, muttering that a close call like that is worse than any permadeath. His face goes from relieved to absolutely horrified as he realizes he just rang the dinner bell. A set of massive, shadowy claws suddenly clamps down on the chain-link fence just inches from his head. The monster slowly peers over the top, its gaze locking onto the two cowering students with predatory focus. His brain can only form a single desperate thought. Please don't see me, please don't see me. Meanwhile, the stairwell survivors are left staring at the empty doorway, wondering if they just got incredibly lucky. Hoodie Girl snaps them out of it, yelling that standing around gawking is how you get game overed. She points them toward the multi-purpose room, shouting it's their best shot for a new safe zone. Her companion quickly agrees, adding that its reinforced doors are practically boss-proof. One of the boys takes a moment to ask his friend who the new guy with Eason's party even is. Elsewhere, a mysterious old man sits in a vintage car, offering a solemn prayer before turning the key. He steels himself for the coming trial, asking for the strength to see his mission through to the end. The car smoothly pulls out onto the street, its engine a low, determined hum. Back at the school, the monster's head whips around, its attention instantly snagged by the new sound. It completely forgets the boys hiding in the bushes, its focus now locked on the vehicle approaching the gate. The driver, completely unaware, continues his prayer for divine protection against whatever lies ahead. He floors it toward the school entrance, a man on a mission with no idea he's become the new aggro magnet. His determined prayer is cut short by the sickeningly familiar feeling of being watched. A quick glance in the rearview mirror confirms his worst fear. The field behind him is suddenly, ominously empty. He lets out a blood-curdling scream, recognizing the signature move of a world-ending boss. His foot instinctively slams on the brake, sending the tires screeching in protest. The car's sudden stop introduces his forehead to the steering wheel with a comical thunk. He completely loses control, veering off the road and having an unscheduled meeting with a very solid tree. Dazed and confused, he clutches his head, trying to reboot his brain after the unexpected system crash. The horrifying image of the creature from the field flashes through his mind, confirming he's in way over his head. He desperately checks his mirrors again, wondering where the high-level mob could have possibly gone. The answer comes from above as the monster sails gracefully over the fence, a dark shadow passing over his car. It lands directly on his hood with enough force to turn the front of his car into a modern art sculpture. A long, wicked-looking appendage slowly extends from the creature's arm, glowing with malevolent energy. The appendage plunges down with impossible speed, punching straight through the car's roof like a hot knife through butter. The screen simply fades to black, leaving the unfortunate driver's player status as currently disconnected. A new group of students frantically sprints between brick pillars, desperately seeking cover from the chaos. Their leader suddenly skids to a halt, yelling that they've just run straight into the boss arena. He ignores his friend's panicked questions, insisting their only option is to fall back immediately. A monstrous foot craters the pavement right in front of them, emphatically ending the debate. The rooftop horror now stands guard over the crumpled car, completely blocking their only escape route. From behind a wall, a girl frantically waves for someone to join their hiding spot. She freezes mid-gesture, a bead of sweat tracing a path down her face as the puzzle pieces click into place. Her eyes widen in realization. The monster isn't just rampaging, it's guarding that weird, fleshy thing on the field. Elsewhere, the stairwell survivors finally reach the heavy double doors of the multi-purpose room. One girl cautiously cracks the door, peeking inside for any unwelcome party guests. She gives a relieved thumbs up, confirming their potential new safe house is currently monster-free. Two of the students immediately collapse onto the floor, their stamina bars completely depleted. Hoodie Girl jiggles the handle, announcing the bad news that this particular safe zone doesn't have a lock. The boys just scoff, arguing a lock is useless when they've seen these things tear through solid steel. Another girl chimes in with a classic horror movie solution: barricade the handles with a broomstick. Our protagonist realizes this brilliant plan requires a side quest back into the monster-infested hallways to find one. He just stares off into the middle distance, his mind still trying to process the last 20 minutes of insanity. He looks down at his own trembling hand, wondering if this is all just a horribly realistic nightmare. A sharp rap on the wall from Hoodie Girl snaps him out of his 1,000-yard stare. She cuts right to the chase, asking how he knew a monster was about to spawn on the rooftop. She presses further, wanting to know how he predicted a student was about to have a very, very bad day. He looks away, quietly admitting this wasn't his first time seeing the transformation sequence. Her eyes narrow with intense curiosity, asking him to describe the gruesome play-by-play. He recalls the chilling moment a black sphere materialized over a person's head, just like the one on the roof. Another student connects the dots, realizing he means the same weird orbs floating above all the monsters. He explains that once the sphere appears, the person goes pale and starts shaking uncontrollably. The group is completely floored, processing the bombshell that there are actual warning signs before the change. He shrugs, admitting he has no idea what triggers the event, guessing it's just a terrible case of random RNG. The gears start turning in another boy's head, who now remembers seeing someone acting strangely on the rooftop. He recalls the bully from earlier, collapsed on the ground and complaining about suddenly feeling cold and paranoid. A girl breaks the tense silence, wondering just how many more monsters are still roaming the school. Her friend adds the even more chilling thought that any one of them could be the next to turn. Their leader can only grimly agree with the horrifying new party rule. He establishes a new safety protocol. Speak up the second you feel the slightest bit chilly or paranoid. One girl nervously asks the million-dollar question of what happens if someone does report a symptom. Eason stands up, declaring that the rest of them would simply have to run for their lives. But Hoodie Girl chimes in, suggesting a far more permanent solution than just running away. Her cold gaze makes it clear she's advocating for a preemptive strike before the transformation completes. The main guy, desperate to change the subject, brings up the more immediate problems of food and bathroom breaks. Right on cue, another boy realizes his bladder is about to stage a full-scale rebellion. A girl rightfully questions the sanity of venturing back into the hallway for a non-essential side quest. Eason points out the bathroom is literally down the hall, so long as they make it a speed run. The boy's urgent need is suddenly defeated by his overwhelming terror, earning him a swift bit of mockery. Eason sighs and heads for the door himself, confident the immediate area is probably clear. Hoodie Girl raises an eyebrow, silently asking if he's really about to break their one rule of survival. He just retorts that a man's gotta go even during the apocalypse. His hand closes with grim determination around the cold metal of the door handle. The camera pulls back to a wide shot of the doors, alone in the silent, empty hallway. Eason slowly cracks the door just enough to peek out, his breath held tight in his chest. His eye goes wide, not with fear, but with sheer, unadulterated confusion. Because that weird, fleshy sack thing from the athletic field is just lying there on the floor. The boy with the bladder problem timidly asks if Eason can be his bathroom buddy for moral support. Eason frantically waves him into silence, hissing that their lives depend on being absolutely quiet. The rest of the group watches, completely baffled by his sudden switch from confident to terrified. The main student starts to panic, wondering how on earth that thing followed them from the field. Suddenly, Hoodie Girl's head whips around as she picks up a faint squelching sound from the hall. Eason presses his ear against the door, straining to identify the bizarre noise on the other side. Outside, the fleshy creature begins to lose its shape, dissolving into a shimmering, goopy puddle. A girl near the back starts to freak out, screaming for someone to just slam the door shut already. But Eason doesn't move a muscle. His eyes locked on the hallway, completely captivated by the horrifying spectacle. Eason stammers out the impossible revelation that the creature outside is now a person. He turns back to the door, his mind desperately trying to reboot after that system-crashing update. He confirms with a ghost of a voice that yes, the monster just deflated back into a human. The main guy immediately calls shenanigans, demanding he take another look to be sure. Hoodie Girl cuts to the chase, cautiously pressing her own eye to the crack to see the horror for herself. Her gaze falls upon a student lying motionless on the floor, their body covered in bizarre, crystalline growths. The boy with the now-forgotten bladder problem nervously asks if it's really truly a person. She confirms it's human form, but adds the chilling detail that she can't tell if they're still breathing. She notes the obvious signs of infection and the gut-wrenching familiarity of their school tracksuit. The rest of the group immediately starts to spiral, wondering if this nightmare is airborne. But the main guy's mind goes somewhere else entirely, clinging to the slim hope that the student might still be alive. Eason and Hoodie Girl exchange a look, forced to admit it's a long shot, but not an impossible one. Eason's face pales as he realizes the horrifying implication. He's suggesting a rescue mission. The main guy suddenly pivots the conversation to a classic zombie movie, leaving everyone completely baffled. He throws out the theory that, just like in the movies, this person might have antibodies to reverse the transformation. Hoodie Girl gives him a look that clearly asks if his brain has been replaced by popcorn. She cuts through the movie logic nonsense, pointing out the one fact that actually matters: a monster turned back into a person. A spark of desperate hope ignites in another girl as she realizes this means there might be a cure. Eason grits his teeth, torn between survival instinct and the crushing knowledge that inaction now could haunt them forever. The main guy seizes the moment, declaring that they have to make a choice, right here and right now. Hoodie Girl adds a layer of urgency, reminding them that the hallway isn't going to stay empty forever. The main guy's eyes narrow with grim determination, the weight of their lives resting on his next words. With the debate settled, the group steels themselves to leave the questionable safety of their makeshift fortress. Two of the students peek out, still half convinced it's just a monster playing possum. One girl takes a deep breath to steady her nerves, a single bead of sweat betraying her forced calm. As one, they cautiously step out into the silent hallway, Crossing the threshold into the unknown, Isin lays down the law one more time. If you break formation, you're on your own. The main guy backs him up, warning everyone to be ready for a sudden and violent relapse. He then turns to Hoodie Girl, asking if the injury she sustained on the rooftop is going to be a problem. She just grits her teeth through the pain, insisting that a little thing like a wound is the least of their worries right now. Hoodie Girl takes one look at the crystal-covered body and declares it officially deceased. The main guy immediately nominates Isin for the Poke the Potentially Explosive Monster mission. Isin shoots him a look that screams, "Et tu, brute!" with a side of abject terror. Despite his protests, Isin's trembling hand begins its slow, agonizing journey towards the crystallized student. The rest of the group holds a collective breath, offering the incredibly helpful advice of "don't die." Isin calls for his electrical support unit, demanding Hoodie Girl have the stun gun on standby. She calmly informs him that said stun gun was yeeted off the rooftop during their last boss fight. But the main guy pulls a plot twist, revealing he'd actually snagged the stun gun before their great escape. Hoodie Girl breathes a sigh of relief, grateful her expensive, custom-modded zappy stick is safe. He then holds up the device, which now has all the structural integrity of a potato chip. She insists it might still have a little juice, but he counters that it's more likely to zap the person holding it. Isin, deciding a 50-50 chance of self-electrocution is better than nothing, snatches the broken weapon. He kneels down beside the crystal-laced student, preparing to perform a very questionable wellness check. With the grace of a bomb disposal robot, he gives the body a tentative poke with the busted stun gun. The others question his scientific method, but Isin insists he's just testing for a reaction. Probably. Hoodie Girl sighs, pushing past the boys to do it the old-fashioned way and check for a pulse. She kneels beside the body, entering the potential splash zone with a professional's calm. The boys watch on, their collective bravery having been outsourced entirely to her. Her fingers navigate the hazardous crystal terrain, not for a pulse, but for the student's nameplate. The name clicks into place, and suddenly the generic school tracksuit becomes terrifyingly specific. A wave of ice-cold recognition washes over her as the pieces fall into place. Her mind races. She didn't know him well, but she knew of him. She remembers him as one of the cronies who followed the rooftop bully around like a lost puppy. Staring at his still form, she sends a silent prayer into the universe, hoping he's still in there somewhere. His eyes snap open with an audible crackle of crystal, his voice a broken whisper asking about his fate. She scrambles back, her own survival instinct screaming that she's about to join him. Before she can completely short-circuit, the main guy's hand shoots out and grabs a fistful of her hoodie. He yanks her back with the force of a cartoon stage hook, pulling her clear of the danger zone. Isin goes full-on panic mode, screaming that the patient is having a catastrophic relapse. The main guy hauls her away, roaring for everyone to fall back as the student goes full-on hedgehog mode. She thrashes against the retreat, desperately trying to translate the Crystal Man's final words. The main guy tries to reboot her brain, but all she can do is scream the poor kid's name. From the doorway, the rest of the squad offers helpful, high-pitched advice to hurry the heck up. That name triggers a system error in Isin's brain as he realizes he knows the guy currently becoming a floor decoration. The floor suddenly gets in on the action, erupting with dark spikes that send them scrambling back. Trapped in the thorny embrace, the student begs for a patch to fix the whole imminent death bug. His pleas turn to raw screams as the shadowy growths begin to win the tug-of-war for his soul. Isin's brain has officially blue-screened, leaving him to just stammer at the unfolding nightmare. Hoodie Girl whispers his name one last time, her face a frozen mask of disbelief. In a final, silent surge, the shadowy corruption completely encases him in a crystalline shell. When the transformation completes, a brand new floor-mounted monster is all that remains.